Hello coders, I hope you are coding well. In the previous video, we created the sign up page, API call and auth service in our Angular project. In today's video, we will create the user storage service, login page and login API call. We will use storage service to store the token and user details in browser storage. So let's get started. To create the storage service, we can right click on our services folder, and here we need to click on new folder, and let's name this folder as storage, and let's open this folder in new integrated terminal. Here we can write command to create the service, which is ng g for generate, s for service, and let's name this service as user storage. After this, let's open the user storage service class, and let's create a variable with the name of token, and let's give a value of ecom/token. Now let's duplicate this variable and rename this to user and update the value from ecom token to ecom user. After this, let's create a public method and let's name this method as save token, and in the params this should accept a token of type string, and the return type of this method should be void. And in this method, first of all, we will remove the existing token if we have in the local storage. To do that, we can call here window.localstorage.remove item, and here we need to give the name of the item which we want to remove. In this case, we want to remove the token, so we will give the name as token. After this, we need to store a new token, so we can call window.localstorage.setItem, and here we need to pass the name, which is token, and then the value which we are getting from our params. Our save token method is completed. Now let's copy this and paste this method one time and rename the method name to save user, and this time we will get user in the params. And after this, let's remove the existing user if we have, and then to set the user we need to stringify the user object, so we can use json dot stringify, and here we can pass our user, and our user storage service is completed for now. In the future, we will add more methods to get the token or to get the user details. Let's save the file. Now let's go to our login component, and in the HTML file we need to create a div with the class of container, and then we can start a mat tag. Let's close these tags as well, and in this mat card let's give a mat card title as login, and then we can start our mat card content. And in this mat card content we can start the form tag, and let's name this form as login form. In this form tag we need to add controls for our form, and the first control is email. Here I got one mat form field and the appearance is outline. Then I mentioned the mat label as email, and then I got an input with the form control name is equals to email and placeholder is equals to email. After this, we need to give the tag for our mat error, and in this tag we are just checking if our form control is invalid, then we are showing an error message. by mentioning please enter a valid email address. After email form control, we need to get the password, and to get the password we can create a new form field, and I changed the form control name to password and placeholder to password as well. After this, let's add a button to switch the visibility of our input to text or to password. Now we need to add the mat error tag for the password as well. After this, let's create a button with the text of login, and on the click I am calling a method in our TS file, and the method name is onSubmit, and this button will be disabled if our login form is invalid. After this, at the end we can add a button to navigate to sign up page. So if user don't have an account, he can click on this button and we will redirect him to sign up page to create a new account. Our login HTML is done. Now let's go to login.component.ts and create here two variables for login form and hide password. I am setting the hide password value is equals to true. So by default our password should be in the dots. After this, let's add the constructor for this component, and in this constructor I am creating the object for form building, auth service, mat snack bar and router. Let's import these by clicking on add all missing imports. After the constructor, let's create ng-on-init method, and in this method let's call this dot login form is equals to this dot form builder dot group, and here we can mention our form controls. First form control is email, and by default value for this control is null, and for the validators we can mention here validator dot required. Let's duplicate this form control and update the name to password. After ng-on-init, let's write the implementation for the method toggle password visibility, and in this method we are just toggling the value of hide password. So if it is true, we are updating it to false, and if it is false, then we are updating it to true. After this method, let's start writing the onSubmit method, and in this method let's create a constant with the name of username, and now let's get the value from our form. So we can use login form dot get, and in this get we need to mention the control name. I am mentioning here email because we want to get the value from email, and then let's call the value to get the value. Now let's duplicate this and update the constant name to password and update the control name to password as well. After this, let's call our auth service dot login method, and let's pass username and password in the params, and then let's subscribe the response, and in case of success let's name it as res, and in case of error let's name it as error, and in this error section let's open a snack bar with the message of bad credentials, and in the case of success let's open a snack bar with the message of login success. We will update this success section, and we will redirect the user to the user's dashboard by checking the role of the user in the next video. Now let's go to the auth service and let's write the implementation for this login method. In the auth service we need to create a method with the name of login that should accept username and password in the params. In this method, first of all we need to create the headers. For that we can write new http headers dot set, and then in the content type we need to set application/json, Let's import this HTTP headers, and after headers let's create a constant with the name of body, and let's set the username and password in this body. After this, let's use the HTTP client to make a post call. So we can write this dot HTTP dot post, and here we need to give the basic URL plus the endpoint for this API is equals to authenticate. After this, we need to pass the body, and then we need to pass the headers. After this API call, let's use the pipe method to perform some operations. After this, let's use the map, and let's get the response in the res, and here let's write an arrow function and import this map from rxjx. Now let's create a constant with the name of token, and we need to get response dot headers, and from headers we need to get the authorization, and then we need to call the substring method, and let's give the value as 7 so we can get only token without the starting string, which is bearer. After the token, let's create another constant with the name of user, and let's get the body from the response by writing res.body. After this, let's write a condition here, and in this condition let's check if we got the token and user, and if we don't have token or user, then we need to return false. After this, let's inject our user storage service, and here in this if condition we need to call our user storage service dot save token, and let's pass the token, and let's duplicate this, and instead of token let's give user this time, and let's change the method from save token to save user. After saving token and user in the storage, let's return true from here. Now let's save this auth service.ts. Let's save the login.component.ts, and let's save the HTML file. As you can see, our application is working fine without any errors. Now let's write the code for the CSS. You can copy the CSS code from here. Let's save this file. Now before going to the browser, as you can see, we are trying to get the authorization from our headers, but to do that we need to expose the headers first from our backend. So let's go in the backend and add the lines of code to expose the authorization headers. In the authenticate API call, we need to add these two lines to expose the headers. Now let's rerun our application. Our backend application is up on port 8080. Now let's go to the browser, and I opened the application tab here so we can view if we got our token and user stored in the storage. Let's enter the details for our admin account, which is admin@test.com, and let's add the password as admin, and let's click on login. As you can see, we got our message as login success, and here you can see we only got one record for ecom token, and the value for this is basically user, which is wrong. Now let's go to our front-end application and fix this issue. As you can see, I am in our user storage service, and here we need to replace this with the user. Now let's save the file and test this again. Now, as you can see, we got our token and user separately. That's it for this video. In the next video, we will create the separate toolbars for different users, and we will add the rest of the methods in our storage service.